Thank you for listening. If you want to know more about us and our services, please visit our website at www.wsk9co.com.
We're going to talk today about the here command, and I'm going to just throw something funny out there. Harnesses, and should we use them and should we not use them? And my take on that, and I think that we're all on the same page here, is do not use harnesses unless you are instructed by a trainer or for medical purposes that you should be using a harness, and there should be a very, very specific reason why you are using a harness. It should not be your first go-to, and it should not be a way to stop your dog from pulling, because that is not how harnesses are designed. So the big answer overall is don't use harnesses. So let's talk about something a little bit more exciting, and that is the here command, which some people use come, and we typically use here for our recall word. Michelle, what does here mean to your dogs?
Here means physically get your butt here. You will be touching me and I will be touching you. No matter what is going on, here is here.
So here is more of a place and a connection, not the action of actually getting there, right? So you don't care how they get to you as long as they stop and get to you. Correct. Shannon, what is Louie's understanding of here?
I use here more for go to a place that's in a vicinity of me, like onto your bed or on to the grass or wherever. It's more of like a come to a surface and sit there kind of a command for him.
And he has the come command, which is get to you and connect to you.
Which is more like let's go.
Okay. So, how do you use come?
I don't say come.
Okay.
That's weird. I know.
Yeah, no, it's good.
It's an overused word. Like no is an overused word.
Yep.
And so I try not to use filling words that we just use to speak to tell the dog to do something. I try to be really specific with, like, off is a word I use. Yep. You know, I don't say down a lot. So I try to have specific words that aren't overused for his commands.
Which is really cool. We were at a business meeting last night, and 3 mini Aussies, and the gentleman's a horse trainer, so we share stories all the time. And Chris is in the kitchen with these 3 mini Aussies, and they know a lot of tricks, and I mean they're really well behaved, and so Chris is telling him I think it was like Ferrari or Corvette or something like that, and that just meant lay down. And so, you know, Chris is like, hey, we can teach him any word to a behavior. So as we talk about here, it's more about understanding the concept of what here is versus the word itself, because you can put any word to it as long as you're consistent about, you know, what the behavior is that you're expecting that's based on that word. And so for me, come is very informal, where here is stop what you're doing and get to me. Michelle, what's the first steps of getting that instant reaction to here?
Well, I mean, connection with your dog is first. Creating a connection with your dog, if that means having them on a leash, following you everywhere you go, never sending them away, never using the word go in a bad way. I'm trying to think of what else we do. So we do, oh my gosh, Joe, why can I not think of the leash thing? Wandering. There we go. Yay. Wandering with your dog, creating that connection, having them always checking in up on you no matter where you're at, doing that in your backyard, doing that at the park, doing that up in the mountains, doing that at anywhere that's big enough that you're not disturbing other people. And then with that, start adding the word here with the leash, bringing them to you. I really think my dogs know the word here, but I think it's more of my tone of voice and probably my body language. When I say here, that means come here, and it's probably more how stern I sound and then I point at my feet, which means here, come here. So think about your body language and how you're sounding to the dog, because I don't want to sound aggressive to the dog, because I don't want them to run away from me thinking they're afraid of me, but it needs to be firm enough that you know you need to get here right now.
I will use, when I'm teaching it, I'll use targeting, and you can find that on our online dog training platform on how to teach targeting, but I'll use it with targeting to help the people get the flow and the rhythm of staying consistent with their body language and staying connected to their dog, because I find a lot of times that people will call their dog, but then all of a sudden they're putting their back to their dog, or they keep on moving. And so the dog's like, well, you want me to connect to you? You want me to follow you? I'll catch up in a minute kind of a thing. And so I'll use targeting to, one, help the people understand what their body's doing when they call their dog, and staying consistent that way. And then also helping them get the timing down to when you're targeting and you start calling your dog off the targeting, to get their timing down so they have a goal. Like, your dog cannot touch that target that's loaded with hot dogs. And so they have to really, like, your dog cannot have those hot dogs. And so you have to do everything that you can with that word after we go through targeting to call them off of that plate of hot dogs. Or, so we create the drive away from them in more of a natural way, but it helps the people get the timing down and understand what the behavior of the dog is going to do when they call them, because your dog's not just it's not picture perfect where your dog's just going to slide into it, turn around, and come racing back. Some dogs will kind of circle over to you, and some dogs will go at their own pace, which is fine as long as they're getting to you. And so I use targeting to help the people get the timing, get the flow, the urgency, so that when we do start transferring it out, that it becomes more real life and they know what they're doing, instead of them trying to figure it out and it doesn't make sense to them. So on top of the wandering, the connection, the leashing, the hand feeding, we will do targeting, and then we'll do targeting with leash on, so they understand that correction when the dog gets there and they hear that. But also, people have a hard time with the concept of you should be touching your dog when you call. Like, that's really hard for people to think, like, I need to reach down and touch my dog. Yeah, because if you truly need to call your dog, you're probably getting control of them. And so helping people understand there's a place. So sometimes I'll even put a paper plate by their feet and teach them that the dog has to put their feet on the paper plate, or their feet on your feet, so that it's very clear to understand what that word really means is, I need you here touching me because I'm going to touch you. And it's not a game. It's not sit out 2 feet away from me. It's I need you as close as you possibly can to get to me. And Shannon, what does Louis perceive when he hears that word of his recall word? What's his picture?
I really don't call him very often, because he's always with me.
Yep.
And also, your dog's really good, as we talked about before, on picking up nonverbal cues of what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so he has mostly nonverbal cues to follow me to do things. So I don't call him very often, if ever. Because I'll let him outside and let him be outside. And if I open the door and poke my head out, he'll run to the door.
Right.
And if I just go outside, out in the yard, he'll run over to me and follow me to go see what we're doing.
Yeah.
If we're all sitting outside and I get up to go, he follows me to go inside.
Yeah.
So I don't ever call him. And the only time I can think if I would is if I cannot find him.
Yeah.
Which seems odd.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And then I'll just say, Louie, and then I hear him jingle, 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 come to find me.
Yep.
You know? So it's mostly, for him, I guess it's mostly why aren't you connected to me? That's the only time that I would call him, when I can't see him or he's not looking to me for directions.
Yep.
So it would just be like a reminder, hey, you're supposed to be with me, looking at me, doing what we're doing. Yeah. How come you're not in this room? Yeah. So, I don't call him.
And I think that, in the big scheme of things, as from a trainer's standpoint, it's pretty rare that we have to call our dogs. I've had my dogs in situations that they've questioned what they're supposed to be doing, and I've had to call them then. Or the family has split up where the kids are out ahead of us or in a different location, and they're confused on, do they go with the kids or do I come back, do I need to be with you? And so, ultimately the ultimate goal is you really should not ever have to call your dog. I mean, you really shouldn't have to really call your dog, because they should be connected to you enough for you to give information to them, but not having to call them because they're heading into danger. And so what that says is Shannon has reached the ultimate goal of dog ownership. And I think that's pretty cool.
I think other people can look at it in the way that, say, if you unwrap a candy and anywhere in your whole house your dog hears the candy and runs to where you are, it should be like that for everything you do.
Yep. Yeah, you should be the candy.
Yeah, all the time.
Yep. Yeah. Ready and what's next and what are we doing and waiting for that information. Michelle, what have been some of the situations where you've had to call your dogs? And I know you've got a unique situation at home that we've had to tweak a little bit, but what are some of the situations you've had to call?
I really think most of 90% of the time my dogs are just like Shannon's dogs, and I don't even have to wonder where they're at. Camping is definitely a different story. Anytime we go up in the mountains, especially if there's a lot of dogs going on. If we're hiking, it's a different situation because we're all moving together. You're right. If Brandon ever goes somewhere else that I'm not with him, but we can see each other, Murphy has this internal struggle of where should I be. The other two will just go with who's moving, who's physically moving. But when we're camping, it's a little bit different because we're pretty stationary. We set up camp and we all sit there. This last weekend, there was 13 other dogs there, so there was a lot going on that was not involved with just us. So there's a lot of movement, a lot of dogs going this way and a lot of dogs going that way. So calling them back was definitely a must, had to happen at some time because we weren't exciting. We were not the candy at that point because we were just sitting there hanging out by the fire where all the other dogs were out playing. So there was definitely some situations in that. At home, I very rarely use here. Rambo's the only one I think I ever use here for, and that's because he's stubborn as heck. So if I ever have to physically bathe him or something, he's always with us. Always, always, always with us. But he's definitely the one that is off on the couch where he can still see us and is connected to us, but he's not physically standing next to us where Murphy, we can't get away from us. So with him, I use here a lot more often. But that's really, it's you just need to come here so that I can bathe you or whatever, give you your medication or whatever it is that's going on that day. Prudence being deaf, she's definitely our different situation right now. But the nice thing is that I have found with her is that she has always been so connected to us. It really does not affect our day-to-day life, ever. It's been fascinating to watch her because, for instance, every morning my husband gives them a treat when he leaves. And she has just learned to get up and go out with him. The second he leaves to go downstairs, she just gets up and goes with him, where the other two wait to hear the treat actually being open. So it's been fascinating watching her get into these different routines that she's using her visual instead of hearing us. Camping, we did end up having to use an e-collar on her, which thank goodness we had because she does get distracted. She's still a spaniel. She does get distracted by smells and everything else that's going on, the other dogs and stuff, and she can't hear us. So that helped so much, just being able to just give her a little tap and have her come running back. It was really, really nice.
So advice that you would give a dog owner as it relates to the hear command, Shannon, what would that be?
People often use the command to try and get their dog to come to them when they want to do something the dog won't like.
Yep.
For example, call him to come here because you're going to have a bath. Call him to come here from the dog park because we're going to go home. Call him to come here because you don't want him to be having fun and playing. And that is a negative way to teach them, because then they learn that anytime they come to you, something bad's going to happen, and then they start to think you're tricking them.
Yep.
So you have to teach it where you just call them to come to you, and then you're like, hey, you came. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Something cool,
Yeah.
So that every time that they come to you, something cool or exciting happens instead of something negative.
Right.
I notice a lot when I'm out walking that people's dogs will run out at you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're walking a dog and people's dogs run out at you, and they're just screaming, Rover, Rover, get back here.
Yeah.
Rover, Rover, come. And I know always 100% those dogs are never going to come back to those people.
Yeah.
But they continue to scream and scream and scream at their dog.
Right.
Instead of just going and getting it.
Yeah.
And that's what you should be doing if you're going to wash your dog's ears. Just go and get it and wash their ears, and then just let them go.
Yeah.
And don't have a conversation. Don't have any verbal, come here, we're going to do this, whatever. Just go get them and do it and let them go.
Yep.
And if your dog is running away, just go get them and bring them back home.
Yep.
Don't stand on your porch and call and scream and scream and scream at them, because you know it's not working. We know it's not working.
Right.
Just go and get them. And so anything that's a negative thing, and maybe if it's not negative, if you want to go on a walk and you just go and get them and go.
Right.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Just go. If you want your dog to do something, just go and get them.
Yeah.
And if you want to teach them to come to you with a command, make it a party every time they do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They need to associate it with something very, I don't know that positive is the right word, but it's got to be purposeful.
Yeah.
There's got to be a reason.
Mm-hmm. You're not just come, haha, nothing happened.
Yeah. Come so I can put you in your crate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're going to go to the crate, then either go get him and tell him to crate, or tell him to crate.
Have it be a command.
Yep.
Have the crate be a command.
Right.
Have the car be a command.
Right.
Have sit be a command.
Yeah.
Everything can be a command, and just don't try to get them to come here for whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Yep. Michelle, we do a lot with Porch. So kind of describe that situation and the Porch command.
The Porch command is more for how Shannon was saying, if like dogs that are running or runners or whatnot, creating a really positive thing on that porch so that every time they're on that porch, something amazingly exciting happens. If your dog's food motivated, every time you go for a walk, leave food on the porch. So when they get back, it's there. Add the word porch to it so they actually have that command, but it should be a fun, exciting thing always. That porch should be the best thing that has ever happened to them.
And you had just had that fairly recently with two dogs that were bolters.
I've actually had that recently twice in two different situations. One was one of my very, very first clients. They had a border collie that would just take off, which was the weirdest concept to me ever, that a border collie would just take off like that. And he was so food motivated. So that's what we did. We put hot dogs down every time we left to go out for a walk. We did targeting with the porch, creating that first step. So making that porch really exciting and fun. And I'm currently working with one that they live on a super busy street that their dogs will run across the street if there's people across the street. So we're teaching them to go to the porch as the more fun, exciting place to be then.
But why not just teach porch?
Right.
Like, just forget about come.
Yeah.
Teach your dog to go to the porch, and porch is the thing.
Right.
Teach your dog shoe.
Right.
And then their target is your shoe, and they have to come touch your shoe.
Right.
Just throw away come and just come up with something creative that's your own word. Because you're not walking around your house, say, shoe on, guys. Hey, let's shoe.
Yeah.
Shoe whatever,
Right.
So let that be your command so that it means something.
Right. Right. And that the dog actually has to do something.
Yeah.
I guess, Shannon, for me, here is that because I don't use here for anything else. And I tell all of my clients that, like, instead of using the word come, because we use come for everything.
Yeah.
We just, naturally, you just do. Come on, let's go. Come on, let's get in the car. Come on, and you don't mean to. So I don't use here unless it is here. And the command is physically you have to touch me. So instead of like physically touching the shoe, it's you have to be physically touching me. So I feel like it's the same thing, but it's here is actually not really, it is, but it's touch me.
Well, and I've had a client that she's like, I don't want to have to think about something that doesn't come natural, so I'm going to use come. And the dog really isn't that connected to her because that's kind of how she looks at everything. But it comes natural to me, so that's the word I'm going to use, and we'll eventually get there. So it's true, like stop using these things that there's no purpose to it, there's no action to it, and you don't follow through with it. I mean,
and if you think about when you're training, what we taught our dog high five, right? Mm-hmm. And you could probably be in the middle of the forest and say high five and put your hand like you would do a high five, and the dog would run from wherever it was to give you high five. Why? Every time you do high five at your house, it's like for a show, for the people, say your dog is so cute, and they get all the kisses, and they get a cookie, and they get a treat, and that's what come should be.
Right.
So if you're screaming, Rover, Rover, from your porch, and your dog won't come, try high five.
Right.
Or whatever you trained him to do. And that dog will run and give you high five.
Yeah.
And you got him back.
Right.
That's what you wanted.
Right.
You know?
Yep. Yeah, it's great. So the challenge here for everybody listening is do something different and make your here command purposeful and actionable from the point of the dog, not an end all or a